And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith. Going to talk some Tigers, a little bit and some lines, a little bit of Red Wings as well, involving Patrick Kane. Let's get to some Tigers right away, shall we? Spencer Torkelson has been struggling again offensively with his bat. Yes, he's done better with his glove defensively, but his bat, at least it's not getting any worse, but it's not getting any better either. It's a 220. He's got a 221 batting average and a 600 OPS. It's just the same as his first 2 years.
Yeah, it's showing a trend that's becoming a pattern, and frankly, if this is who he is in year 3, year 4 at this point, you're starting to have an acceptance of the reality that this is probably the type of player that who he's always going to be. He's not going to be that high efficient hitter that's going to regularly be in or around 300 or above, maybe 320, maybe 330 on an even better year. He's going to be a type of guy that he's going to be feast or famine. He's going to give you some power hits, some extra base hits, and some home runs, or he's going to go through struggles such as this. Last year, I believe he hit about 30 home runs, if not exactly 30 homers. This year so far, 0. Now, as of late, he has had some impressive performances, or at least shown some improvement at the plate to complement was already a known strength of his glove, which is important to have especially if you're going to be the everyday first baseman. But still, despite his overall season struggles, the last 4 games, I believe, for Torque, he has had batting average of 357, and he's gotten at least 3 doubles. So, granted, it's a very small sample size, but you'll take it compared to what you've gotten for the first, 30 or so games of the year. So, frankly, with Torkelson, yes, the offense in general, frankly, is a big reason why this team should be it's the reason why they're in 4th place instead of, in my opinion, leading this division. Because if you think and look at the data that we have on how strong this team's pitching has been, mainly from the starting rotation, but also from some key pieces in the bullpen. And overall, especially in this, there was this 6-game stretch leading up to, I believe, the start, or at least the first game of the Cleveland series, where the Tigers, get this, despite having, I believe, at least the starting rotation, giving you 41 innings of work, giving up only 9 earned runs, 5 walks, 48 strikeouts, having a whip. This is like one of my personal favorite stuff. Besides the ERA, which is a shade under 2 at 1.98, you have a whip of 0.83. For those that don't know, whip, that is essentially a conglomerate average of how many times you allow either walks, hits, per innings pitched. That's exactly what it says in the name. And frankly, it's a determining factor on how well your pitcher or pitchers or pitching staff can keep guys off base. And when you have a whip that is below 1, that is considered, even back then, as far as a decade ago, way back then, especially now, that is considered exceptional. So to have a whip at a 0.83 from your starting rotation, nonetheless, regardless of any stretch, but especially in a 6-game stretch that utilizes that, hey, this is what they've been all year. Casey Mize is getting back into his groove. Tarek Skubal looking like a perennial Cy Young candidate. And yet, the best you have to show for over this past 6 games is 1 win. Like, for goodness sakes, Joey Wentz, I'll let you take it from here, Taylor. Joey Wentz was even a surprise.
Yeah, Joey Wentz, 0.61 ERA, 109 whip, and 19 strikeouts in 14 2/3 innings on 9 appearances. Hokey smokes, Bullwinkle. That is a vast and major improvement by Joey Wentz out of all human beings on earth.
I believe that lots of credit should be given to the pitching stat coaches. I believe the pitching coaches for finding the right balance of letting the talent that's already there naturally be themselves, giving them the necessary adjustments or advice that's required for them to complete their game overall. I don't know what the hell's going on with the offensive side, with the bats, with the hitting coaches, but you wish of some like this is where the one instance where you hope that where I wish the trickle down theory would work. I'm not particularly in general a fan of that whole trickle down theory, but this is the one instance where I would be a fan of it because like, can we get something from what we're getting from the pitching coaches? Can that emanate or rub off or trickle down its way to the hitting? Because I'm telling you, Taylor, with at least a mediocre offense, this team would be leading the division, if not tied for the lead. Just mediocre. They're not even mediocre. They're god awful. And no matter who you send up or send down, bring up or send down, or who you call up, or who you try to DFA or whatever, nothing is changing. I mean, they had to ship Parker Meadows out of Toledo. He may not be the only one. Cole Keith, in his last 66 plate appearances, he's giving you a split line of 102, 182, 119. For those that think I was speaking something crazy, I'll repeat that. In his last 66 plate appearances, Colt Keith has hit a split line of 102, 182, and 119. That is flat out unacceptable. Parker Meadows, the reason why he's getting shipped down to Toledo is that for one particular reason, against fastballs. Remember, this is the pitch that, granted, it's not an easy thing to do. But if you want to consider yourself a big league hitter, this is the pitch that you've got to find a way to consistently hit, right? Parker Meadows against fastballs this season has had a batting average of .079.
Oh.
With an expected batting average of .076.
Wow.
And to top it all off, he has a whiff rate, which means of just over 28%. Which means almost 1/3 of the time that he is facing a fastball, he is going to whiff. He is going to swing and miss. He'll be lucky, and if he's lucky to get any type of contact, it's not going to go any further.
No, it's not going to go.
So, like I said, it's not just a Spencer Torkelson problem. This is a full ride systematic problem that's going on with this offense. If you mean to tell me you go into a bandbox such as Yankee Stadium and you can only put up 6 runs across 3 games, damn right you deserve to get swept. The only reason that you're not in last place on the division right now is because the White Sox are at an absolute low point of their franchise history. That's your only saving grace for not being in last place right now. And this is, like I said, this is, frankly, the most winnable division in all of baseball. And with the pitching that you are having right now, you're completely wasting it.
Yeah, that's true, especially with the lack of offense. Kenta Maeda gave up 7 runs in the first 2 innings in the 11-7 win over the Cleveland Guardians at Progressive Field after throwing 11 innings where he gave up only 1 run on 7 hits combined, no walks, and 10 strikeouts in his other previous 2 starts.
Frankly, with Maeda, I've accepted the fact that you want him as your back-end rotation guy. This is your everyday 5th starter to where, I always use him as an example of a comparison. You want to be your Brad Penny, your 2010, 2011 Brad Penny to where, you know what to expect for coming into this game. You're going to give up some runs. You just better hope your offense is going to be up to snuff. Otherwise, you're likely taking an L that day. That's all. I've grown to accept it. Trust me. I've learned and noticed and studied that ever since Brad Penny was on here doing the same damn thing around 2010, 2011, and it hasn't stopped me. It's changed different players, but that role has still remained the same. It's just taking on a new player this year, and for this year, it's Kenta Maeda.
Yep, that's true. And right now, he has not been consistent.
I mean, granted, I will say he did give you a good. Oh yeah, like I said, it's just
two good starts. Yeah,
he'll give you 2 good starts, and then he'll follow you up with a stinker. Now, this one, with his next start, hopefully he'll give up at least no more than 4 runs. I was gonna say 3, but that's being too generous. I think 4. If he just keeps it to under 4 runs, we should be in good shape.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So I believe that's all Tigers. Shifting to the line.
Like I said, this is you still got to remember the fact they're in 4th place, but they're only 5 games back, man. 5 games back. If
Yeah,
you get a decent call up or two from Toledo, you get a steady improvement from Torkelson. Because remember, because guys like Riley Green, thank God for Riley Green doing what he's been doing the past few games. Otherwise, this would be even worse of an offense that we're looking at right now. So if we just get a couple more guys giving you more timely hitting, I'm not expecting 3-run homers every 3 or so games or something, but just give me good, consistent, timely base hits where you're not wasting uh, incredible pitching performances either by your starters or great holds by your bullpen. Give them some adequate run support, please, and I promise you, you will be in contention for, if not outright, leaving this division.
exactly. And the Tigers are competing and they're hanging in there. Just they just have to get the offense going. That's all.
Well, you better because Minnesota has heated up. They've won 8 out of their last 10 games. That's another team that's going to be looking to compete with Cleveland for the division title. So you have to deal with that. And if you try, keep going through the stretch you're going through right now, like I said, you're going to remain where you're at.
Don't
Because
forget the
once
Kansas
again,
City Royals.
exactly, I let them out, but again, they're middle of the pack themselves. But like I said, the only reason you're not at a worse spot is because the White Sox are the White Sox. But other than that, you're looking like if this does not improve, you're looking at another likely 4th place finish in the division. How many times now have we seen that over the past few years? And this is supposed to be a rebuild? No, you got to find some way to make some type of deal, whether it be before the deadline or at the deadline, or even before the cutoff after the deadline. But something has got to be done to where you get a body, someone that knows how to hit something. And if it's not the talent, then damn it, what's going on with your hitting coaches? Look into that.
Yeah, I know, right?
You got to do something to figure out what is the problem because we can't keep wasting these type of quality starts and outings from your rotation and from your bullpen. Otherwise, it's just going to be a waste of a season. And this is a
Yeah.
year where you expect things to take an upturn. And frankly, from what we're seeing from the pitching alone, we know this team has that potential.
Does, yeah. Right now, it's like half potential from the pitching and half not potential from the offense.
Exactly.
Trending truth, the Lions have signed safety C.J. Moore again after his gambling problem and his suspension. He has 1 interception in his first 4 seasons with the Lions, 48 tackles in 56 NFL games, all together.
What I can say about this deal was got to remember first and foremost, I think he was showing to be a consistent cog for this team and for this system. Unfortunately, though, he was one of I believe 5 Lions players, most notably Jamison Williams, that were caught up in terms of violating the gambling policy that the NFL had in place, and now of course it was in various degrees or various terms of offense compared to Moore. If you're comparing guys like Moore to what Jameson Williams did, because JMO, as we all know, got only 6 games. Here is Moore; he's just being reinstated. Thankfully, the NFL was able to make some adjustments and make some changes to some of what the rule is to make things more clearer. So that way, hey, if you're doing this, you know what you're doing, you know what you're risking. So as a result of that, they've reinstated players that they've suspended, that they had once had suspended indefinitely, and CJ Moore is one of those guys. Now, as for Moore, I'm sure the Lions are more than happy to bring him back, and he is more than happy to be brought back. But here's the thing. A lot has changed in just that one single season since he has been gone. So that's why they gave him only a 1-year deal. This is essentially a prove-it deal, but if things all turn out as well as they could possibly be for him, he can be as seen as needed depth or help, where it can be on the defensive side to where hey, they may need him to come in for a couple of snaps, for a couple of snaps for one of the safeties, maybe a backup for Brian Branch or so, or this could be another thing. You could have him be a figure or be a role in the special teams. Because when you have guys, like Malcolm Rodriguez, guys like Jalen Reeves-Maybin in there, and knowing to what the new kickoff role is going to allow you to do to potentially make things more exciting on how to use your special teams. Granted, your special teams has already been creative enough as is, but the fact that you have guys like Jalen Reeves-Maven who can make plays on one end of making tackles that pin people deep, while on the other play being able to execute fake punt runs. So you have guys like that. You have guys like Malcolm Rodriguez showing his versatility. You just drafted a guy in Simone Vaki, who again he's doubles as a running back and also a safety. I wouldn't be surprised if you have him be a guy that has a role that's suited for the special teams, similar to what Jamal Agnew had to when he was here. So if you have CJ Moore around and he's shown that he has what it takes to still, be useful, show that he's of use to this team, absolutely, I can see him having a roster spot, and I won't be surprised if it is in a place like the special teams.
Yeah, and just stay out of trouble. That's the thing.
Well, again, this is part of what they want to establish among their culture. So this could be a good welcoming sign to where, or test that could prove to be a benefit rather, to where, hey, this is us giving a player a second chance in a sense, and showing that hey, as long as you're doing your due diligence, putting in the work, but also doing things right off the field, we'll gladly welcome you. Just believe that it shows that you're a fit for us, what we are and what we stand for.
Exactly. Speaking of
Yeah.
speaking of signing, the Lions have signed defensive tackle Kyle Peko, age 30, from the Tennessee Titans and Oregon State. 22 tackles, 12 full tackles, 10 assisted tackles, and 1 pass defended in 13 games. So, Ed, analysis and what's your grade?
Well, you got to remember for Kyle Peko's case, he entered the league in 2016.
Yeah.
Before his stint with the Titans last season. Before that, he had um, tours of duty, in a sense, with the likes of the Broncos, the Bills, the Colts, and the Raiders. Now, in 2023, it was essentially considered his best season because he played 10 out of a possible 13 games. Because I think I'm considering that's when he was signed. He was probably signed early into the season by the Titans, so that's why it shows 13 games. But out of those 13 games, he played 10, and those were the numbers that you mentioned that he did put up. He gave you 22 tackles, including 2 TFLs, and he also gave you a couple quarterback hits. That's a guy that you could have, obviously for depth purposes, but you could have to come in that can come in for some snaps if you want to give guys on your DL a breather, like a Reader or like a McNeil, for example, or if you want to move Aiden around or give Aiden a breather, you can do that with guys like Peko. And it's worth noting that he played at Tennessee last season because who was the defensive line coach for the Titans? Terrell Williams, who is now the Lions defensive line coach. So I believe that connection could prove positive dividends for what Petco can bring in terms of depth and production. A good steady balance of that as with this signing here. So as for my grade overall, I'll give it towards a good B minus. I want to see how he can be useful in terms of his role, how many snaps he could be given. He's got to remember there's guys like Broderick Martin and maybe a Levi Onwuzurike if he's gonna show any type of improvement to what they can provide on that interior. Because you have guys like Reader and Wingo and Lee McNeil, for example. Yeah, that's great, but you always want to have that type of established depth where, hey, we know this is a team that you cannot run the football on. And as an added bonus, if you get at least one or a couple of guys that's known to create pressure on the quarterback, like we know Lee McNeil has, like we know Wingo has as well, then that's perfect because that gives you the type of help that you wanted to give Aiden Hutchinson. You're just doing it from the interior instead of giving it the twin on the opposite end. So I think this has a potential higher ceiling than what the grade initiates, but I think B minus is a fair grade.
Yeah. The Lions that are working on extending Jared Goff. Brad Holmes says that Jared Goff, quote unquote, earned his contract extension, and Brad Holmes is clearly right.
Yeah, this is basically an update that we're giving you on, because we had mentioned this on last week's show, I believe, about what was the current progress of Detroit, or at least leading up to the draft. We were talking about the progress
Yeah.
on when the timeline could be of when this deal would get done. Now we are giving you an update for tonight because earlier today on 97.1 The Ticket, Brad Holmes had made this quote saying, like we said, Jarrett earned this contract extension. He had mentioned that this is a high priority, and he's looking to get this done. So the expectation in terms of, or in the general sense that you get from that interview and from everything else that we're hearing from around the league, that yes, this is a deal that will get done. We just don't know when. Now, a couple of things that could be holding it up, or maybe that aren't quite ironed out yet. It could be the number of years. It could be the amount of guaranteed money that Goff wants. It could be the yearly cap hit that Goff wants to get, because he may have felt, because like I said, the key word earned, just like Brad Holmes said, Goff earned his extension. Goff and or his agent may feel that, hey, I've earned to be the right to be paid $50 million a year instead of 45 or 48 that some were projecting earlier. Yeah, it could be a good thing to take a couple of less. Could be a nice little hometown discount of sort. But I am the starting quarterback, and I had you guys one quarter away from playing in a Super Bowl, something Matthew Stafford can never say that he did here in Detroit. And that's the guy that you traded me for, essentially, right? So if I'm Jared Goff, I could say, hey, think of what I've done, think of what I've overcome in this past 3 years as essentially the leader, the captain for this team, to the point where you have fans all around the city, all around Michigan, frankly, in places where you wouldn't expect to see a Lions fan or hear a Lions fan, chanting Jared Goff's name. You mean to tell me that's not a guy that hasn't earned an extension of sorts? I don't know what else to tell you. So Goff will get this deal done. I believe it's gonna. I'm not sure how much uh, it will reset the market if it does. I'm not expecting some type of high crazy deal. I know Rico Beard was mentioning, oh, he'll get about 200 million. I personally doubt that. I'm thinking he'll get at least bare minimum 160, 165. It may go into that 170, close to 180 range, but I'm thinking it's going to mirror what we see, or what we saw what we've been seeing from Kirk Cousins as of late. He'll take a 3, maybe 4 year deal. More than likely, he'll take a 3 year deal, so that he'll increase the chance of him getting guaranteed money for most, if not the entirety of his contract. So I'm thinking, 3 years, 160, maybe 170. That's going to guarantee, hey, 50 or so million.
Somewhat
Bare minimum.
almost 2 million, 200 million, but not quite.
Yeah, yeah, but still, it's a guarantee that Goff is going to get his money guaranteed, and it guarantees that he'll be in that $50 million range that he may feel that he and or his agent feels that he deserves. So it's probably like a scenario to where this is why you have negotiation to get this done. But I think we'll see it when it comes out, because remember we were talking about, hey, how much is Amon Ra going to get against money, and we see how that played out. We'll see. We'll get a similar outcome what we saw with Goff. I think they would have liked to have gotten this done sooner, because you saw how quickly they got the deals done for both St. Brown and Penei Sewell. So that led probably a lot of people to think, okay, Goff's got to be next. Thing comes in threes. But I think one potential reason that is somewhat upholding it, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal at the scheme of things, is not a bad theory that I've seen online, I think on YouTube and I think on Twitter X, is that, let's not forget, Jared Goff is engaged. He and his fiancee, Kristen Harper, they do have a wedding that they have planned.
Mm.
I believe it was an exclusive that they gave the People magazine last month, where they mentioned that their nuptials are approaching soon. Goff was quoted as saying, or at least mentioning, that they want to have the wedding this summer in California. So that leads me to believe that, hey, between trying to get this deal hammered down while also planning a wedding, yeah, that's a lot to try to deal with all at once. So I think once they get the wedding, once they get done or get closer to or get past the wedding, essentially, which I think is not too far off. My prediction is probably sometime around early mid June. Once we get close to the wedding, or once the wedding has already been passed, boom, that's when they'll make the announcement. By the way, Jared Goff, here's your new extension.
Oh yeah,
Congratulations.
a personal congratulations
Yeah,
ahead of time.
talk about a good wedding gift.
No kidding, man. But speaking of which, as we transition to Red Wings hockey, I ran into an article on Facebook about the uncertainty about Patrick Kane, whether he will stay with or leave the Wings. Um, it's I read an article that it was highly not highly, but just somewhat unlikely that Steve Eisenman is going to sign Patrick Kane to 4 or 5 years.
Oh no, no, absolutely not. That would be a crazy deal. And you're going to sign him for that long. How much money are you going to be paying him for what?
I don't know.
But in terms of Kane itself, I'm not. If he were to come back to Detroit, I would expect it would be at least for more than 1 year. I saw one projected figure saying, "Hey, make it 2 years, around $8 or $9 million." Some might see that as an overpay because you got to remember he is 40 years old, but he was one of your best performing players all year last season. Like the numbers and the stats don't lie. He was consistent in the time that he was on the ice. Because remember he was recovering for what from his injured hip, I believe.
Yep.
So the fact that he was able to give you about 50 games or so and had the production that he had, where he was consistent with his points, consistent with his goal scoring, and you saw the connection that he had being reunited with Alex DeBrincat. To me, if I'm Detroit, I better hope I'm on that short list of teams that want to bring Patrick Kane back, and if so, how many years are we doing it, and how much money is it going to take? So, Kane, I think, was giving cryptic tweets purposely, as well as how he was answering certain questions in the locker room about, hey, what do you think about coming back? And the type of body language that he gave was, yeah, I wouldn't mind it, but the right circumstances, the right details had to be up to my standards. So we'll see how it goes. I wouldn't be surprised if, say, because I was looking at an article by the Scarf. She's known affectionately around Detroit sports media, or at least locally, so as the Scarf. But Helen St. James wrote in the Free Press, excuse me, earlier. I think it was early today, or at least a couple of days ago, mentioning the figures that I talked about how much money it might take or could be projected of making. She also mentioned about how efficient he was, of how high his shootout rate was for the Red Wings, which obviously you're going to get a guy who has become a master, making this a specialty. That's one purpose why you brought him here. And you saw how well it worked out for Detroit. In fact, he was the guy that scored the last game-winning goal of the season, even though they had already been eliminated from playoff contention.
Although they came dangerously close.
Yeah, but
had it not been for that 7-game regulation losing streak, I tell you.
Yeah, I would put more blame on that than Tortorella pulling the goalie early. But still, that being said, Patrick Kane had a 75% successful shootout rate. Yeah, I wouldn't mind bringing a guy like that back, especially knowing what he can produce with DeBrincat and with Larkin and with Raymond. Yeah, please. That would be one of my top priorities if I'm bringing him back, if I'm Steve Eisman, rather. But if he doesn't, there could be some names that might be of intrigue in terms of filling that hole, because they're both forwards and they're both productive, and they come with great value. And this is in the same article that I saw in the Free Press by Helen St. James. She mentioned Sam Reinhard and Steven Stamkos.
Oh,
why is that? Because both those dudes are going to be free agents on July 1st. Got to remember, Reinhard, he's only 28. but he's just came off a season where he scored like
Reinhardt from the Florida Panthers, right?
Yes,
Oh my
exactly.
God. The
Mr.
defending Eastern
57,
Conference champions.
Mr. 57 goal scorer himself. And he's only
Oh,
28 years old. And also, we all know of Steven Stamkos for obvious reasons, the connection that he has to Eisman going back to what? Going back to Tampa. He's now going to be a free agent. I would not be surprised if Stevie Y gives him a call. So if we don't see Patrick Kane return, this could be a potential avenue or potential or route that the Red Wings could go, because let's be honest, with the improvements that they took, and also I think, again, I mentioned priority of getting Raymond's deal done. You got to get that done as well. So getting Lucas Raymond's deal done, figuring out what to do with Patrick Kane. If he stays, great. If he not, hey, who can we get to replace his spot essentially? I think going after guys like the likes of Sam Reinert and Steven Stamkos will not be a bad option, because this team, Detroit, has now become a viable free agent destination again. In my opinion, because we did see the step up that they took this past season. Yes, they were this close to making the playoffs. Yes, things could have gone a bit differently, but they have shown the progress in this part of the plan, the Eisner plan, if you will. I believe there's still some ways to go. You got to get better, solid depth and consistency with your goaltending, for one. Make sure your defense is better adjusted with your defensemen, because I don't know what the hell was going on with Mo Sider's defense this year, chiefly among other things. But still, knowing that the production that you've gotten from your best players, from Raymond, from the Brinket, from Larkin, and of course with Patrick Kane, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them try to say, hey, we know what we can do, what we can get better at. We are the Red Wings. We're on the comeback. Let's see who we can try to get in free agency. That's if, Chris is going to give Eisenman what he wants to do instead of handcuffing the Tigers the way that he's been doing for the past decade. But we'll see.
yeah. Jeez, Chris, that name Chris Illich annoys me, but man, it's the truth.
Oh,
Yeah, this has nothing to do with his priority waste sponsorship, which is nothing to
no,
us.
no, 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 no. Right, we're not going to bring up that mumble jumble bull jive. No.
No way. No way. Because it's just a sponsor and that's it.
Right. What is stitched on your clothing does not determine how well you should play a game of hockey.
Exactly. The Washington Capitals had Caesar Sportsbook as a sponsorship jersey patch, and nothing affected them. It didn't affect them. They made the playoffs, but just barely. Only to get swept by the Rangers, who are on the verge of now sweeping the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, who knows? That probably could have been us too. And I think for Eisenman,
right,
he would have seen that as just as of a waste as missing it entirely, because hey, yeah, you made the playoffs, but you didn't win a single effing game. No.
Right. One thing about the Red Wings defense, I'd like to mention Jeff Petrie. I think he's going to be stuck. He's got a no trade clause. I learned from Kyle Busch of the Healthy Scratch Red Wings report on YouTube. Well, Jeff Petrie's like unlocked according to Spot Track, and I need to.
How many years he's got left?
Oh, Spot Track's Spot Track's experiencing an error loading, but anyway, I'm gonna look this up on SpotTrack.com right now.
Well, while you're doing it, I think it's worth noting that they did have the draft lottery this week, and the Red Wings, as expected, got the 15th spot, which makes sense. I highly doubt the team that came out on a whisker of making the playoffs was going to all of a sudden be rewarded with the number one overall pick. So that, of course, went to the San Jose Sharks, and now we'll see what Detroit will be dealing with in this year's draft. Are they going to stay where they are? Are they going to try to make a move to move up? Is someone going to fall in their lap? We'll see. But that was the results of this past week's draft lottery, and now essentially, we look forward to what's going to happen come July 1st. Because, like I mentioned before, that's when free agency starts. That's when you can officially start talking to dudes, making deals, getting deals done, um, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yep. There's Jonathan Berggren. Yeah, these are minor leagues. Hang on a second. Teams. Come
Well,
on.
frankly, it's irrelevant in my opinion because who's going to be wanting to ask for Petrie anyway. So um, they got bigger fish to fry than Petrie's contract in my opinion. So I think
Yeah,
about
that's true.
that just that's about covers that aspect, covers that point.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. So
I
what
mean,
all
we
did we?
still well before what we get to what we learned. There was one more thing I want to talk about. And I thought you had this put up with the Lions because I think I mentioned messaged this to you earlier as well. But this will by the time we have our next episode next week,
It's
the
right here.
NFL will have already released its schedule. So I think this could be a topic that we can revisit on our next episode to what the schedule will officially look like for the Lions. But until then, I think it's fair to at least try and give our predictions on what the schedule itself will look like. Now, here's some factors you got to take consideration, Taylor, based on how our regular season record ended up and based on how the rotations of certain divisions that we'll be playing, the Lions got a schedule this year that some would say is a bit more difficult than last year. But hey, that's the expectation. If you're going to be one of the teams that's going to contend for a Super Bowl, you're going to get the higher end of more difficult strength of schedules. You want to be the best among one of the best teams in the league, prove it. But in this schedule, you're looking at playoff rematches with all three of your opponents. So that means the Rams, the Bucks, and the 49ers. That also and based on what it means of facing teams that were among your division or who won the division, yes, this means another venture uh, against Dallas. And I think based on the percentages of, hey, they were the 2 seed, we were the 3 seed, that means yes, another trip to Jerry World. So you can already predict that, hey, whenever they announce that Lions versus Cowboys game, that's going to get a lot of eyeballs, probably a primetime spot whenever that happens. Also worth noting, this is going to be the third straight year that we will be facing the Seahawks at home. So I think, hey, can the third time be the
Another
charm?
chance to beat them. Just
I
gotta.
know, third time the charm. Can we beat these damn birds at least one time? And also one more thing as a note before I hear what you want to say on certain aspects, we're only going to get about 3 outdoor games total this whole season. And based on how they rotate or schedule these 3 home games, there may be a chance that one, if we're lucky, will be a cold weather outdoor game. So the outdoor games, because among the 14 dome games that the Lions have, that's 9, I believe 8 or 9 at home. Yeah, 9 at home. And then the other teams that you're facing are the Colts, the Cardinals, and the Texans. That's your road games that are going to be contested under a dome surface. So that means your only outdoor games are the Packers, the Bears, and the Niners. Given what we all know now, and like I said, I mentioned the Rams, that's also going to be a home game. So, yes, people, this means Stafford is going to have his second game back in Detroit. This will be his first regular season game against the Lions in Detroit. But still, the atmosphere I would expect for that will still be quite wild and electric compared to what we saw in the playoffs. But given what we know, given that we were getting playoff rematches, given that we're going to get a return trip to Dallas, given that we're going to face the Seahawks at home for the third straight year in a row, and given the fact that we may be lucky well, given the fact that we're getting 3 outdoor games, period, I want to hear from you, Taylor, a couple of things. How many primetime games are the Lions going to have? How many cold weather
A
games?
few.
All right, before you answer that, how many primetime games are they going to have?
Few.
How many cold weathers are they going to have? And
I'm hearing none.
who will be their opponent on Thanksgiving?
That's a mystery.
Well, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your guess. It's fun to guess.
I'm guessing the Green Bay Packers again, either them or the Chicago Bears.
So you think it's either going to be Packers or Bears on Thanksgiving again?
Yeah. Yeah, the
I
Lions
wouldn't be.
have, if it's the Packers, the Lions have a chance at redemption from last year.
That's not a bad option. I'll get to that in a little bit. But how many net primetime games are you thinking?
I'm thinking like 5 or 6.
That's a good number. I'm expecting. I wouldn't be surprised if they get 7. For quite honest,
Yeah.
because you got to remember you're getting 3 playoff rematches, and don't forget these games got a lot of high ratings, both on NBC and of course the NFC Championship game on Fox. You got the return trip to Dallas. That's for sure gonna get a look from either ABC or NBC.
A chance of
I
redemption
mentioned,
there.
yeah, and I think one of these away games that you're seeing could be a potential spot, like say, for example, in Houston against CJ Stroud. That could be a potential Monday night game. I
Oh,
think for sure the line Detroit will get another home Monday night football game as well. So you got to take that into consideration. So I think the Lions are in the mood, could be looking at 6, if not 7 primetime games. That's my prediction for that. 6, no more than 7. 6 to 7 is my figure. Um, Cold weather games, I'm gonna say 1, because the way that they'll schedule our outdoor games, regardless of of when they'll schedule the 49ers game, that's weather is, unless it somehow rains like a monsoon, I doubt weather is going to be a factor in that one. So you're looking at either Green Bay or Chicago, Lambeau or Soldier Field. I'm gonna say they're gonna schedule Chicago for earlier in the season, like around September or October, and then they may just have the Lambeau game be later in the year at December. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it week 18 again, just like they did a couple years back. It would not surprise me, especially if it comes down to the fact that the division title is on the line again, or at least a playoff spot of some sort. So I believe that's going to be, if you have a cold weather game all year, that will be the one. And I think it'll be a perfect setting. Lions, Packers, late in the season, if not at the end of the season. So if you're going to have one cold weather game, which is my prediction for that, I think it's going to be the Packers. And as
all
to
right.
why, and as to who I think the Thanksgiving opponent's going to be, a division opponent is not out of the realm of possibility. We've seen it before in recent years with the Bears. We saw it last year with the Packers. If I'm going to say division opponent, though, I'm going to say the Vikings.
Hmm.
If it is a division opponent, because I believe what's the storyline of having JJ McCarthy having his first game in Detroit, then having it
Yeah.
be the week of the Michigan Ohio State game. I think it's a perfect storyline essentially that you can draw up. Or, and now hear me out on this, if they don't do this as an early Monday night or Sunday night game, how about Lions Rams?
Oh, yeah. Is that at Ford Field or is that SoFi Stadium?
Oh, it's gonna be at Ford Field. It's gonna be at Ford Field. Yeah, it's scheduled for Ford Field this year.
A second trip back to Ford Field for Stafford.
Yeah, and again, it's like a reverse of what we have to go through, because we were the higher seeding um, to the Rams compared to what us being the lower seed against the Cowboys. Hence why the Lions are going to be going back to Jerry World this year, and why they'll be hosting the Rams. respectively.
Yeah. I do want to get back to the Red Wings. I did find Jeff Petrie's
There
contract
we go.
terms
All
on
right.
Spottrack.com. I just had to type in the keywords because I couldn't find Jeff Petrie's name on the roster. I did manage to find Spottrack.com when Spottrack's app was acting up for
What'd you
some
find?
reason. But Jeff Petrie's going to have one more year in his contract. $6.25 million for the next season, and then after that, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, and that's it.
Bye. July 1st, 2025 cannot come any sooner.
GTFO in advance.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep that in my Safari browser on my iPhone here. So now we can discuss what we've learned, all of what we learned in this episode.
Well, we learned that the Tigers, despite their offense being so inept that it really is a disgrace almost to the game of baseball, especially when you consider of how well that their pitching has been throughout the start of this season. Despite all that, they're still in contention for the division. They're only 5 games back. Yes, they're in 4th place, but they're in the worst division of all of baseball. So 4th place means you're only 5 games back. It's still early. It's still May. You can still do something to get this offense in better shape to where adequate run support complements your outstanding pitching. What we learned also from the Lions is that they're more than willing to take a second chance on CJ Moore. They're more than happy of bringing in a guy like Kyle Peko for depth purposes, for connection purposes to their new defensive line coach. And we've also learned that they're willing to wait out this Jared Goff situation and wait until the time is right for all sides involved to get this deal done and pay their man. And we learned also that what the NFL schedule release is for next week, for May 15th to be exact. And expect to see some playoff rematches, expect to see a return to Dallas, and expect to see, for some reason, another year at home against the damn Seahawks. So there we go. And also we learned pretty much the same thing that we already know from Patrick Kane, which is nothing. We don't know when he's going to be making his decision, who he's going to be playing for. Frankly, we may just have to wait either on July 1st or possibly until sometime after July 1st to know exactly how this thing is going to play out.
All right. So, as I pause Stephen Colbert here, that's what we've learned in this episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Michigan_Truth. We're live on TikTok every night except when we go on StreamYard, by the way. Like its Facebook page. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like our videos and turn on all notifications on the bell icon. Follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker. Follow me on Twitter or X, TikTok, and Instagram and YouTube. Subscribe at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on X, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at EdSmith313. Business shoutouts go to Athletico Physical Therapy on Woodward and Ferndale, the B4 Foundation for Brady Hesbrook in Ithaca Public Schools. Cali Tickets, call Mark Oman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Creative Embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City, the JC Youth Foundation. Let's roll with it. Rolled ice cream in Cadillac. Last week's flavor of the week was creamy lemon, one of my favorite flavors. Lemon, I love lemon. This week it's peanut butter cheesecake. Like their Facebook page. Follow them on TikTok at the Food Mafia LLC and on Instagram at the Food Mafia Rolled Ice Cream. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac, 231-884-8195, and on Facebook Union Barber in Birmingham, United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan, United Mobile Power Wash and Dry Ice Works in Southfield, and Well-Being with Catherine Palms. Next week, like we mentioned before, we will predict the NFL season, especially for the Lions. So until then, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips, signing off. But remember, we observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports because the truth is out there. Ta-ta, hit him with a hind.
Take care and be safe, everybody.